Does God hate divorce? Yes. Can a Christian get divorced? Yes. Does God hate sin? Yes. Does God love sinners? Yes. Is divorce a sin? Not necessarily. I'm a Christian, but one of the problems with the church is we get stuck. We get stuck in our denominational teaching. We get stuck in our vision of the truth. But what we're horrible at is giving grace and mercy to people navigating a broken world. Yes, we want to honor God's laws and his truth, but God allows divorce. He does. He gives special circumstances where it is allowed. And so when someone is forced to navigate that, when they go to the church, sometimes we just feel browbeat. We wear the Scarlet Letter of Divorce, but we don't have to. We serve a loving, forgiving God. And by the way, what we did may not even be a sin, right? The divorce itself may not be. The mess that got us there, maybe. But that's a different story. On the Unyoked podcast, we spend time working through the tough issues of getting a divorce, navigating a divorce, and recovering from a divorce. But it's not that easy in the church. So listen to these excerpts from one of the episodes where we talk about the tension between being a divorced Christian and living under the thumb of some misguided churches. Listen in. Today's episode is going to hit just a little different than some of the others. It might be a little controversial, but I think it's because it's going to sting a little and challenge some to have to look inward. It shines a light for church leaders who are willing to step outside of their traditions and comfort zones and want to better minister to those affected by divorce, which statistically is anywhere between 40 and 50% of church members. I've been divorced over 5 years now at the recording of this episode, and I have only met a small handful of divorcees who have not been scarred, hurt, or frustrated with their churches post-divorce. The truth is, most church leaders assume couples may have slipped away from their flocks post-divorce, but fail to realize that their programs, words from the pulpit, or lack of empathy might have actually driven people away. I found this to be true more often than not. This podcast wasn't built to give the X and O's of God's view on marriage or divorce. There are plenty of sermons that break down a Genesis view of God's perfect plan for marriage. This podcast speaks to those who are living in a broken world, trying to navigate a really rough road in their lives. We discuss how we feel, not just how we should feel. We discuss things that will never be heard from a pulpit. Although I hope there will be Christian pastors and leaders who listen to this and gain a new lens on the people in their flock and their mindset and their obstacles. I also know there's going to be very judgmental approaches to viewing or listening to this content with the lens of, does this pass truth theology test? But I want to remind everybody listening that Jesus was full of mercy and truth. And I beg anybody to listen to put on a lens of empathy and mercy while you keep your truth lens. That's all I can ask. The Bible is not theory, but enough with the theory of marriage and more into the real. We really are divorced. We really are crushed. Our cars have been wrecked. Now what? There's often an undertone of, well, your marriage failed. And those of us whose marriage didn't last, well, does the church think less of me, less of my spouse, less of both of us for the mistakes that we made that resulted in our divorce? So often there are so many underlying issues of a divorce. The reason for the divorce is not even the real reason. Now, then, for some of us, our spouses still attend the same church, or do they come to some of the church events? Every awkward interaction is a reminder of our new divorce reality. As we navigate conversations that ignore our strange realities or addresses them awkwardly, we feel we have to explain things, not knowing what details to reveal and which ones to leave out. It's so much easier to just avoid, which is some of the reasons we don't come. Sitting together is not an option. Sitting apart is weird. Here's another way the divorce stigma manifests itself.
family-centered churches. Churches that market, cater to, shout openly about families. There have been many books on this topic. For many of you listening, you'll say, what's wrong with that? The Bible is pro-family. Well, of course it is. But if you look at the New Testament teachings and rank them, it's blown way out of proportion. It has become a thing the Bible is not promoting as high as churches do, like American patriotism. But are children, orphans, widows, divorcees, single people all less important in God's eyes? Are we not equal? The Bible does not rank families over individuals in the same manner that many churches, marketing, and event planners do. In fact, Paul in the Bible actually implies marriage and family is a less desired route to take. Yet, not only do we celebrate it, we assume it to be the standard. We come in and we feel like a fish out of water because the church is built around a family tone. Yes, there's a very real stigma in our churches, and it makes many of us not want to walk in the doors. We just don't always feel welcome. And certainly, often we don't feel ministered to. In some cases, we feel singled out, pun intended.
If you like this content, then subscribe for even more resources, fun, laughter, and sound advice for Christians adventuring in unyoked living. Not just divorce recovery, but for brave men and women who are growing and going and living a life on mission. Blessings.